I assume it has a good matchup against the known best deck, right?
Right.
And so, like, I would be pretty scared. We're going to join this one part of the way through game number 1 here. And wow, we've got a lot going on. 2 dragon turtles and an ascendant spirit. What is happening?
So there's an ascendant spirit. It looks like, and we're going to get in here for 9. A dragon turtle is tapped, which I think was used to tap down Hall of Storm Giants. Is that why it's still tapped?
Yeah, that does look like it, because
Okay.
Dragon Turtle has flash, so it probably came in response to an attack or a block. There's expressive iteration now for Ichikawa. I'm not going to pretend I know what he needs to find here to get out of this, but there's definitely some action. Also consider and Fading Hope at the ready here for Shintaro.
Well, I mean, if you're Ichikawa, you're just looking to kind of assemble that combo, right? That 1-2 punch of Galvanic Iteration into Alrund's Epiphany. He does play a copy of Burn Down the House, which would be fantastic here, right? Dealing with these creatures that are on the battlefield. He does have a little bit of life to work with here. Given that he does have that Divide by Zero in hand, along with this Demon Bolt that he's presumably going to use to try to get this Ascendant Spirit off the battlefield.
Yeah, you know, he does need to do that. Next stop for that would be a 4/4 with flying. And then it gets really ugly. It ends up being a 6/6 that has still flying, and when it hits you, you draw a card.
Yeah. Ishimura, if he does play some number of counter magic, would be nice to find one here. He is still putting a ton of pressure here on Yuuki Ichikawa. Next turn, I mean, we can see an attack here for 10.
That's right. The Celestis doing work over here, though, for Ichikawa, buffering his life total a little bit and getting him some card selection.
All right,
There's
we got
Dream
another
Shacklegeist off the top. That's a nice little rare from Crimson Vow.
Yeah,
this is a very tempo-y deck.
It is a tempo-y deck, but Dream Shacklegeist, you know, the type of card that's really good against creature matchups.
Yes.
Not especially good here.
That's right. It can, at the beginning of combat, it can tap down an opposing creature or keep a creature tap down for a turn cycle. But as we see, there's no such thing going here. And we see a Divide by Zero, ready to bring a Dragon Turtle back to hand.
Ooh, I like this.
Wow, this is aggressive. Fading Hope to return the turtle and prevent the lesson learn interaction from happening.
Right, because Yuuki Ichikawa, I mean, look at all the mana that he has, right? You don't want Yuuki to just go get a mascot exhibition here and try to stabilize in that manner. So it's unlikely for your bounce spell to do a whole lot more in this matchup anyways. So I think that was a pretty good use of that Fading Hope there for Shintaro.
Heads up play there. He does get in. Down to 6 goes Yuuki Ichikawa. And he has... Yeah, you can see he's got expressive iteration, so that's a good place to start.
So he's got the answer for one of these turtles, but needs an answer for the other, or the Faceless Haven, as that's 9 damage that can potentially get in next turn.
And his mana is getting very crimped here as well. 3 of it's already taken up by the Divide by Zero, so he needs something that costs like 2 or 3 mana, depending on what he hits with iteration.
I also just want to talk about the sizing here. 5 toughness is a really big game against the Izzet decks, because the most damage that most of these spells do is 4, right?
And look at that. Thundering Rebuke, it would have been perfect. He even found another removal spell. Now, he happened to have Spike Field Hazard here as well. Can he do all of the things?
He can do all of the things so that he will survive here, yes, because Shintaro's going to run out the Dragon Turtle, Yuki's going to Divide by Zero the Dragon Turtle, and Shintaro can only get in for 4 next turn with the Faceless Haven. And if this Divide by Zero resolves, Yuki will then try to stabilize with the Mascot Exhibition. But remember, there's that Dream Shacklegeist as well in Ishimura's hand.
That's right, and it could tap down the biggest of the creatures and pose a real problem here. Wow, Fading Hope number 2 now from Shintaro Ishimura means he actually has an answer to 2 of the tokens, and he's going to have his opponent down to a very low life total, just 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure this exhibition is going to be enough here.
This is an interesting decision now for Yuki, is where it looks like he wants to put out the 3/1 flyer just as a lethal threat. Because he has the Dragon Turtle, he can tap down the 2/1 Flying Spirit on the other side and then get in for lethal.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see Ishimura take down this first game. I mean, the mascot exhibition only puts one flyer onto the battlefield, and that Fading Hope off the top was also a very big draw.
Yeah, it looks like he's got backup for his backup here. And this is one of those rare spots where you're kind of really, you're just like, yes, tap out. Like just tap a whole bunch of mana for that mascot exhibition, and then I can win.
I just don't see how one card gets him out of this. I think he might need to loot here with the Celestis. Dream Shackle Geist by itself could just tap down the lone flyer that the mascot exhibition would make.
Yeah, right now Ishimura actually has 3 ways to get a single blocker out of the way. So, yeah, so obviously what that means though is that Ichikawa needs to find an actual way to kill the Geist, but he also has to not die to the Faceless Haven.
He's just dead.
He's just very, 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 very dead here.
Mono blue tempo. Not on my radar, Marshall.
Mine either, but I'm kind of excited to see it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we can't get too far ahead of ourselves, can we, Paul? Because one thing about monocolored decks that you give up by playing them, you get consistency, right? That's great. Your mana is good, etc. But you do give up a lot of flexibility in sideboarding, where you don't have many options. If somebody comes at you with an angle that your color's not good at handling, you're dead.
Yeah.
And, so you're kind of all in. So I'm curious to see what happens post-board here. If Yuuki Ichikawa can make adjustments necessary given the build of his deck.
Yeah, I want to take a look at Ichikawa's sideboard. I think one of the most impactful cards to keep in mind is Smoldering Egg. How many copies of Smoldering Egg does Yuuki Ichikawa have? As typically, a mono blue deck will have a lot of difficulty with that card. Now, that being said, Shintaro also has thought about that and has 2 copies of Ray of Frost in his sideboard as ways to potentially shut down cards like that.
Yeah, and Ichikawa does have 4 copies of Smoldering Egg in the board. And I assume he's going to bring all of them in.
Yeah, I would imagine so as well. Also blocks the turtle. I don't know how many turtles Ishimura still keeps in this matchup. It still seems like a pretty good card in general, just given the fact that it has flash.
Man, Ray of Frost is nice. That is a sweet one.
Oh, and take a look here. Ichikawa boarding out all the Epiphanies here and just trying to turn into a pure control deck.
Okay. Just doesn't want to have to be put in a position to put 7 mana sorcery on the stack against a mono blue deck.
Against the mono blue deck with a bunch of cheap efficient counter spells.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Kind of see where we're coming from there. It looks like the Galvanic iterations also lose their place once the Epiphanies go.
Right. And I mean, he just has a bunch of removal and kind of turns into still doesn't really he doesn't have a shortage of ways to win, right? I mean, you still have the 2 copies of the Leer. Is that a Goldspan Dragon as well? Maybe not. Underneath the Leer, I see a Burn Down the House. There's another 5 mana red sorcery or red card of some sort. But not only that, you have the 4 copies of Smoldering Egg. And keep in mind, if something gets Ray of Frosted, Yuuki Ichikawa can then just bounce the egg, right? And then just replay it, so.
Mm-hmm. There is one gold span in the main.
Okay, that's what that was.
Yeah, for Yuki, so that's got to be what it was. All right.
1 lander.
A 1 lander with a lot of 1 mana spells, but 1 spell per turn kind of isn't really what you had in mind when you have all these 1 drops. You want to play 1 and then play a couple.
Yeah, and oftentimes when you see this type of deck in other formats, I mean, you are on the draw. when you see this type of deck in other formats, you have a lot of ways to, you have a lot of cheap cards to kind of cycle through your deck to help you find the lands, like, you know, considers and ops, but not a whole lot here.
Kind of probably thinking, let's not transform this Delver, but yeah, it happened anyway. Fading Hope and Insectal Aberration is rumbling here in Standard. I kind of like it.
Yeah. I mean,
Here's Ascendant Spirit.
Yuuki doesn't have any way to interact with the two creatures currently in play.
No. No, he's drawn one of the few counterspells he left in with Tests of Talents. There's an Abrade off the top, right? Or is it an egg?
No, that's an egg, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. There's a little symbol there. So, nice. That's kind of what the doctor ordered here for Yuuki Ichikawa. It's weird to see Delver.
Right.
Slamming, you know, in Standard.
Yeah, again, just because there's not too many ways to kind of set up the top of your deck. So I think, you know, you play it as your 1-drop and then eventually it's going to flip, but it's not where you kind of expect it to flip frequently on turn 2 or 3.
Right. Okay, Smoldering Egg land go here from Ichikawa.
Land.
Another Fading Hope off the top. And he's just going to pass a turn back instead of casting another Ascendant Spirit. He's got Concerted Defense and the double Fading Hope at the ready.
Yeah, and you have to imagine Shintaro was just going to fire off a Fading Hope here and have turn on the Smoldering Egg, not only to slow down the counters that are going to be piled on top of the egg, but also just trying to find land number 2 here.
A little bit awkward to have Concerted Defense and just have no creatures in your party, even though you have 2 creatures.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
It's still a bad spell pierce.
It is, yeah, it is. It is a bad spell pierce. You're right. Here's Fading Hope now from Shintaro. And, you know, this isn't necessarily like, ooh, in response, unexpected windfall.
Well, but keep in mind, you can go windfall into counter.
Whoa.
Oh, did he want to...
He almost conceded that one.
Does he want to... This is kind of interesting, right? There's another Fading Hope in Shintaro's hand. Do you want to take it and give them extra draws at lands? But at the same time, your egg's at 6, right?
Eggs at 6. I would be tempted. And there is a land Estuary Disruption and another Concerted Defense.
All right, well.
Okay, well, it wasn't a land.
Had enough.
That was enough for Shintaro. Yeah, you know, he knew that when he kept the one lander that there was some risk attached to it, and unfortunately for him, didn't work out this time. So, game number 3 incoming between these two.
And notably, not bringing in those Ray of Frost because Yuuki can counter them with all the bounce spells that he has in his deck.
Some more tweaks here for Ichikawa as he puts the finishing touches. These players both have an excellent day going. 5-1 records for these two. One of them's going to march into day 2 with a 6-1. I mean, that is very well positioned to make a run tomorrow as we work our way towards the top 8. 5-2 is also very solid, but 6-1 is a significant leap above that. You know, the wiggle room that you get by only having 1 loss is really massive when you get to the end of the day and you're playing against really good players who picked the right decks for the tournament, and you need that wiggle room.
Yeah, absolutely. As we get kind of deeper into tomorrow too, just making sure you're one step closer to kind of that magic number 12 will guarantee that you make it into the top 8. But also, what's going to be extremely important for these players is hitting win number 10. Especially for Yuuki Ichikawa, hitting win number 10 will mean that you will qualify for the next event, which will then give you more opportunities at more points to try and get yourself well positioned for the World Championship.
That's right. Okay, let's get underway here in game number 3. Shintaro Ishimura versus Yuuki Ichikawa, both from Japan, and it's an Ascendant Spirit to kick things off. This time it's a 2-lander for Shintaro, and he'll be happy with that. That is the difference. And Spikefield Hazard has a nice little window here to take down this this Ascendant Spirit, and it does exactly that. Sends it to the Exile Zone. Another land off the top. That is sweet artwork on that snow-covered island, by the way. It just really, like, Shintaro knows what's up. He just picks the nice stuff. Another Ascendant Spirit hits the battlefield. Now there's a concerted defense that could potentially protect it, depending on...
Yeah, that mountain was actually quite a good draw here for Yuuki Ichikawa, because now he can use the Spikefield Hazard to get that spirit off that battlefield. Otherwise, he would have only had 2 lands, and it would have been really tough for him to actually pull the trigger on that Spikefield Hazard as a removal spell.
Oh, yeah, that's super tough. That means both of the 2 1-drops that Shintaro started off with are gone.
And now, no creatures.
Right, this is huge.
For Shintaro.
Right? These tempo decks really do rely on having something on board and then protecting it and disrupting you. And I guess technically there's something on board with Faceless Haven. Is it about to get Demon Bolted?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. That's super rough here for Shintaro Ishimura. Smoldering Egg follow-up and a Disdainful Stroke. All he can do is play his land here and pass the turn back with some counters. But he doesn't have any board to protect, and he can't go toe-to-toe with Yuuki as far as card advantage goes at this point.
No, he cannot.
All right, here's a window. Ascendant Spirit.
Yeah,
it can get divided by 0, but he can just recast it.
Yeah, but if you're Yuuki, you're just going to have to try to fight through everything. And it's in his best interest to just cast a bunch of spells anyways, right? He's got that Smoldering Egg in play. So you're going to go for this divide by 0. You could choose to maybe do it on the end step, right? So he can't recast it. And even if it gets countered, I don't think Yuuki cares that much. Also, another interesting thing is, I mean, look, if he draws a land here, you can just cast Burn Down the House. Make 3 1/1s. Flip that Smoldering Egg.
That's right. That's a huge attack. Especially while you have opponent whose shields are relatively down.
Huh.
Okay, well, he actually does get a Spell Pierce out of it here. So he's going to be able to protect his spirit.
Yep. But you're going to see it get bounced again here.
That's right. Bounce spell's very good against Ascendant Spirit, as you know, you eventually dump a bunch of mana into it to make it grow. And in the meantime, you have to start that process all over again every time. And he looks like he wants to put it back on the battlefield. Tell you what, that Disdainful Stroke's going to find some targets this game.
It will, but
that Smoldering Egg might as well.
Yeah, I mean, if Shintaro doesn't have an answer to this Ashmouth Dragon, I mean, even if these spells, even if, at least the Burn Down House, even if it gets countered, I mean, it's still not going to be too bad, right? You're still just going to be able to trigger the Ashmouth Dragon.
Yeah, and he can even do that just with any spell at this point.
Right.
Perhaps Environmental Sciences is the name of the game here.
Yeah, basically the options are Science or just cast Burn Down the House, get it countered, and flip your egg.
Right. He's just going to go for Sciences. And that's going to prompt a response here to turn the Ascendant Spirit into a 2/3. He doesn't want to have any single spell from the Ashmouth Dragon be able to kill the spirit.
Exactly.
And, you know, we haven't even mentioned it yet, Paul, but Lear is just looming in hand here for Ichikawa as well. You know, that's the type of card that if they have a bit of an attrition fight and you play a Lear, it's just over.
Yeah, I mean, that Disdainful Stroke.
Yep. Just set that one aside, right?
Yeah,
just write Lear on it.
It's going to be reserved for the Lear. Yeah. Although currently the Geistlight Snare would also deal with it, as Yuuki Ichikawa would need 8 mana to be able to cast the Lear and pay for it.
Tough spot here for Shintaro. He'd love to start beating down, maybe cast a Dragon Turtle to keep the Ashmouth Dragon at bay for a little bit, but he doesn't have the mana for both, and he needs to leave up those counterspells, so he's just going to play Jwari Ruins and then pass the turn back. Celestis will trigger here, as there was nothing cast there by Shintaro, so it makes it nighttime.
That was
what
a
did
good
you find?
one. An expressive iteration here.
Ooh, the reload.
So, likely going to target the spirit here. Very good chance that Yuuki can find another spell. Of course, he just has a spell in his hand that he can run out.
Okay, so 2 damage on the spirit. Another copy of Lear goes into hand. Lear. Well, it wasn't great.
Yeah, but I mean, you can still just play Burn Down the House here, right? You just cast it. That would deal with the Ascendant Spirit.
Yep, you can just use the Ashmouth Dragon trigger to kill it, get 3 hasties.
And what's Shintaro supposed to do here? I mean, you could counter it. You probably want to use Jwari Disruption, right? That's a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
But I mean, now
this is winning the battle but losing the war.
Basically, I mean, you have a dragon versus nothing on the battlefield here.
Right. Like you did get a nice exchange, but Ichikawa was feeling just fine about it. And by the way, another transformation thanks to 2 spells from Ichikawa means the Celestis is going to keep the card selection going. With a redundant copy of Lear in hand, perhaps Ichikawa would like to get rid of one. Sometimes they'll keep the second legendary because you figure, look, if the first one gets countered, then I can play another Delver of Secrets. And Ishimura's like, having a little bit of fun with us.
What do I play here?
He is not liking his position here, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can try to keep the dragon tapped down. Okay, just throwing in the towel.
He's giving the good game, and that's going to be Yuuki Ichikawa picking up the victory and improving to 6-1.